My parents handed my sister $80,000 for her wedding and said to me, "You don't deserve any help." So I went no contact and carried on with my life. 2 years later, my sister went past my $5 million house and called my mother sobbing, "Why does she have that?" I never thought the sting of being an afterthought could fuel an empire. But the day my parents threw an $80,000 wedding gift at my sister, I knew my life was about to shatter and then rebuild, without them. The engagement party was a dazzling display, the kind where every detail screamed money and perfection. String lights glowed over perfectly manicured lawns, and the air buzzed with laughter and champagne, all for my sister, Olivia. Favoritism wasn't just present in my childhood, it was practically a family heirloom, polished and celebrated. Olivia was the golden child, the one who could do no wrong in our parents' eyes. I was Maya, the other one, the daughter who always fell short no matter what I accomplished. Olivia got a brand new car at 16. I received our grandfather's old sedan, the one that sometimes just died at stoplights. She attended a private university with full financial support. I worked 2 jobs to put myself through community college before transferring to a state school. The pattern was established early, and I learned to expect nothing. My parents, Robert and Eleanor, owned an incredibly successful regional plumbing supply company. They weren't billionaires, but they were comfortable. Very comfortable. Think European summers, a lake house in Vermont, luxury vehicles in the driveway. Money was never tight. Yet, somehow there was always an excuse when I needed help. Then Olivia announced her engagement to Ethan, a real estate agent she'd been dating for 18 months. My mom, Eleanor, immediately went into overdrive. Wedding planning wasn't just a discussion, it consumed us. Every family dinner, every phone call, every thought revolved around it. The budget? It exploded from reasonable to extravagant within weeks. Destination venues were discussed. Designer dress shopping trips were scheduled. A wedding planner was hired at a rate that made my head spin. At the time, I was finishing my master's degree in finance, drowning in student loans, and working as a junior analyst at a small investment firm. My apartment was a cramped studio in a questionable neighborhood. My furniture came from thrift stores and curbside pickups. But I was proud of what I'd built with my own hands, my own determination. I showed up to the party with a bottle of wine I honestly couldn't afford, a genuine smile for Olivia. Whatever our differences, whatever resentment I carried, I wanted her to be happy. The backyard was decorated like something from a magazine. String lights crisscrossed overhead, casting a warm glow over their perfectly manicured gardens. A catering company served appetizers that probably cost more than my monthly rent. Olivia glowed in a designer cocktail dress, her engagement ring catching the light with every gesture. I wore a dress I'd owned for 3 years, the nicest thing in my closet. My mother's eyes swept over me with barely concealed disappointment when I arrived. "Maya," she asked, her voice low but sharp, "you couldn't have found something more appropriate?" I just thought, "Mom, this is what I have." She made a small noise of disapproval and turned away to greet more important guests. Then came the moment. The announcement came during dessert. My dad, Robert, clinked his glass, calling for attention. The crowd of roughly 60 people quieted, turning toward where he stood with his arm around Olivia. "Eleanor and I are thrilled to announce," he proclaimed, his chest puffed with pride, "that we're giving Olivia and Ethan $80,000 as our wedding gift. Nothing is too good for our little girl." The crowd erupted in applause and congratulations. Olivia burst into tears, hugging both our parents. Ethan shook my father's hand enthusiastically, already talking about how this would help them with the down payment on a house after the wedding. I just stood there at the edge of the patio, wine glass frozen halfway to my lips, feeling like I'd been punched in the stomach. $80,000. Casually announced like it was nothing. Meanwhile, I'd been denied a loan of $3,000 to cover a security deposit on a better apartment just 6 months earlier. I approached my parents after the excitement died down, catching them near the dessert table. "Wow, that's incredibly generous," I said, trying to keep my voice neutral. Olivia's lucky. My mother's expression just froze. Some children earn their parents' generosity. What does that mean? I asked. My father sat down his plate, his jaw tight. It means Olivia has always made us proud. She married well. She's settling down properly. She's living the life we raised her to have. And I'm not? The words came out sharper than I intended. You've made your choices, my mother said. That tiny apartment, that mediocre job, those friends of yours. You could have done so much better if you just listened to us. I'm getting my master's degree, I protested. I'm building a career in finance. You're barely scraping by, my father interrupted. Working 80 hours a week for peanuts, living in squalor. We offered to help you get a job with our accountant, but you refused. We suggested you move home and save money, but you insisted on that dump you call an apartment. You've rejected our guidance at every turn. The injustice of it all just choked me. They'd never offered the kind of help they showered on Olivia. Their help always came with strings attached, with conditions and control. So, because I'm doing things my own way, I don't deserve any support? My mother's eyes were ice. You don't deserve any help, Maya. You've made that bed. Now lie in it. Something inside me just shattered. Not with a dramatic snap, but with a quiet crack that ran deep and irreparable. I left the party without saying goodbye. The next morning, I blocked both my parents' numbers. I removed them from social media. I changed my emergency contacts at work. When Olivia called, confused and demanding I apologize for leaving early, she said, "You're being dramatic." Exasperation heavy in her voice. "I'm being clear," I told her calmly. "Don't contact me again." "Maya, they're our parents." "They're your parents. They made it clear I'm not really their daughter. Just a disappointment taking up space." I hung up. And I blocked her, too. The freedom was terrifying at first. No family safety net. No one to call in emergencies. No holiday plans or obligation. Just me, alone with my determination. And my anger. I poured everything into work. Every ounce of hurt became fuel. I stayed late at the office, volunteering for every project, learning everything I could about portfolio management and investment strategies. My boss, a sharp woman named Sarah, who'd built her career from nothing, took notice of my dedication. "You've got something," she told me one evening as we reviewed quarterly reports. "A hunger." I had it too when I was starting out. "I don't have any other choice," I admitted. "The best motivation there is." She became my mentor, teaching me not just the technical skills, but the interpersonal ones. How to read clients, how to position pitches, how to build trust. Within 8 months, I was promoted to senior analyst. My salary nearly doubled. I moved into a decent one-bedroom apartment in a safer neighborhood. I bought professional clothes that fit properly. I started building a life that was mine, untainted by my family's judgment or Olivia's shadow. The silence from my family was deafening at first. I kept expecting someone to show up, to demand an explanation, to guilt me into returning. But weeks turned into months, and nothing came. It just confirmed what I'd suspected. They hadn't valued my presence enough to fight for it. I was easy to lose because I'd never really been held in the first place. Sarah noticed the change in me during those first months. I was sharper, more focused, but also lighter somehow. The weight of constant disappointment had lifted from my shoulders. "Whatever happened with your family," she said one day over coffee, "it's working for you professionally. You're operating at a different level now." I stopped trying to prove myself to people who would never be satisfied, I told her. Now I'm just trying to prove myself to myself. "That's the secret right there," she said. "External validation is a trap. Internal drive is fuel. She was right. Every success felt sweeter knowing it was mine alone. Every milestone reached without my parents' involvement became evidence of my capability. The raises, the promotions, the growing recognition from colleagues, all of it happened in a vacuum they'd never see, never acknowledge, never take credit for. I dated sporadically during those years. Nothing serious. Most men couldn't understand why I worked such long hours or why I was so driven. They wanted someone available, someone whose ambition didn't threaten or confuse them. I learned to spot the red flags early, the comments about my schedule, the suggestions that I was too focused on my career, the barely concealed resentment when I prioritized a work obligation over a date. The years that followed were a blur of 14-hour days and calculated risks. I moved to a larger firm specializing in high-net-worth individuals. My client portfolio grew. I developed a reputation for being thorough, discreet, and highly effective. Referrals came steadily. I met Daniel at a networking event 3 years after cutting contact with my family. He was a software engineer who'd founded a startup focused on financial technology. We connected over shared experiences with difficult families and the drive to prove ourselves. Our relationship developed slowly, built on mutual respect and understanding rather than dramatic passion. When Daniel's company was acquired by a major tech corporation for a substantial sum, he took his earnings and asked for my help investing them. I built him a portfolio that balanced growth with security. His trust in my expertise was absolute. "You have a gift for this," he told me over dinner one evening. "You should start your own firm." "That's a massive risk," I said. "So is cutting off your family. So is working yourself to exhaustion for years. You don't play it safe, Maya. You play it smart. There's a difference." The idea took root. I spent 6 months planning, building connections, securing initial clients. Sarah, my former boss, was my first investor, putting her confidence and capital behind my vision. Daniel helped with the business technology infrastructure. I launched Sterling Investment Partners on a Tuesday in March, working out of a modest office space with one assistant. My approach was simple: personalized service for individuals who built their own wealth and wanted someone who understood that journey. My client base grew through word of mouth among entrepreneurs, self-made professionals, and people who valued discretion over flashy promises. The firm's growth exceeded projections. By the end of the first year, I had 12 clients with substantial portfolios. By the end of year 2, I'd hired 3 additional financial advisors and moved to a larger office. The revenue allowed me to pay myself a salary that would have seemed impossible 5 years earlier. My lifestyle changed gradually. I didn't go wild with spending, but I allowed myself small luxuries that had been unthinkable before. A gym membership at a nice facility, dinners at restaurants without checking prices first, a vacation to Italy, where I stayed in actual hotels instead of hostels. These weren't extravagant choices, but they represented freedom from the constant anxiety about money that had defined my 20s. I even hired a financial planner for myself. Ironic, given my profession, but I wanted an outside perspective on managing my own growing wealth. She helped me develop a comprehensive strategy, retirement accounts, real estate investments, a diversified portfolio that would ensure long-term security. The scared girl who'd worked 2 jobs to afford community college was building generational wealth. Sometimes I caught myself wondering what my parents would think if they knew. Then I'd remember it didn't matter. Their opinion had lost all relevance the moment they told me I didn't deserve help. They'd removed themselves from the equation of my life, and I'd found the solution without them. Daniel proposed on a beach in Florida during a rare vacation. The wedding was small, intimate, held in a botanical garden with 30 close friends. No family drama, no massive production, just genuine celebration. We honeymooned in Rome and Florence, exploring without obligation to share the experience with anyone but each other. When we decided to buy a house, we took our time finding the right property. Daniel's acquisition windfall combined with my firm's success meant we had options. We looked at dozens of properties before finding the one. A custom-built contemporary home in an exclusive neighborhood, all clean lines and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking a private wooded lot. The house cost $5.2 million. It felt surreal signing the papers, walking through rooms with soaring ceilings and a kitchen larger than my first apartment. The master suite alone was the size of the studio I'd lived in when my parents told me I didn't deserve help. The home office had built-in shelving and a view of the garden where I could see deer grazing in the early mornings. We moved in on a Saturday in October, 7 years after I'd walked away from that engagement party. Daniel hired movers while I supervised, directing furniture placement and unpacking boxes. By evening, we collapsed on the new couch in the living room, surrounded by half-empty boxes, but feeling accomplished. The house purchase had required extensive paperwork and financial disclosure. Sitting in the title company's office, signing document after document, I'd experienced a moment of surreal clarity. The down payment alone exceeded what my parents had given Olivia for her entire wedding. I was writing a check for more money than I'd seen in my entire childhood, and it was mine. Earned, saved, invested wisely, and now transforming into something tangible. Our neighbors were corporate executives, successful entrepreneurs, a retired surgeon. At the neighborhood welcome party, a casual gathering in someone's backyard, I realized I was among people who had built their own success. They asked about my firm with genuine interest, exchanged business cards, discussed market trends and investment strategies. Nobody questioned whether I belonged there. My presence was justified by my achievements, not by my family connections or inherited wealth. The master bedroom had a walk-in closet larger than my first apartment's kitchen. I stood in it one morning, hanging my work clothes in color-coordinated sections, and laughed at the absurdity of it. The girl who'd owned 3 professional outfits now had a closet that required organizational systems. But the laugh wasn't bitter. It was amazed, grateful, slightly disbelieving that this was actually my life now. "We did this," Daniel said, pulling me close. "You did this." I corrected, but he was right in a way. This house, this life, was built on my refusal to accept their judgment of my worth. I didn't think about my family often anymore. The anger had faded into indifference, which felt healthier. I built a life they had no part in, no knowledge of. They were strangers who happened to share DNA. My phone rang on a Monday evening 3 weeks after we'd moved in. An unknown number, which I normally ignored, but something made me answer. "Maya?" My mother's voice, uncertain and strained. My blood went cold. "How did you get this number?" "Your sister saw you. She was driving through Highland Park and she saw you getting out of a car in front of a house. A massive house. She said it was in the Sterling Ridge development." Sterling Ridge. Our neighborhood. One of the most expensive zip codes in the state. "What do you want?" "Maya, Olivia is very upset. She called me crying, asking why you have a house like that. She said the properties there start at $3 million. She wants to know how you could possibly afford something like that." The laugh that escaped me was sharp and humorless. "Why would that concern any of you? You're my daughter. We deserve to know what's happening in your life. You told me I didn't deserve help. You told me I was barely scraping by in squalor. You made it clear I was a disappointment and my choices were failures. Why would I share anything with you now? That was years ago. People say things in the heat of the moment. It wasn't heat of the moment, Mom. It was your honest assessment of my worth. You gave Olivia $80,000 and told me to lie in the bed I made. So, I did. I built a life without you. Your father and I would like to talk. Olivia is very hurt that you've done so well without including family in your success." The audacity stole my breath for a moment. Olivia is hurt? She got the wedding, the money, the support. What could she possibly be hurt about? She's struggling, Maya. The real estate market has been difficult. Ethan's company downsized and he lost his job. They're living in a townhouse and having trouble making ends meet. Meanwhile, you're apparently living in a mansion. And you want what, exactly? Money? A handout for the golden child who squandered her advantages? We want a relationship with you. We want to be a family again. You want access to my success. There's a difference. My father's voice came on the line then, gruff and demanding. Maya, don't be selfish. Family helps family. We raised you. We deserve respect and consideration. You raised Olivia. You tolerated me. I'm not giving you anything. After everything we sacrificed for you, you sacrificed nothing for me. I put myself through school. I built my career alone. I bought this house with money I earned. You have no claim to any of it. Your mother is crying. Your sister is devastated. This is cruel, Maya. No, Dad. Cruel is telling your daughter she doesn't deserve help because she isn't living up to your narrow vision of success. Cruel is giving one child everything while the other scrapes by on nothing. I'm not being cruel. I'm being consistent with the lesson you taught me. I'm on my own. His voice turned threatening, the tone I remembered from childhood when he wasn't getting his way. You'll regret this decision. When we're gone, when Olivia needs you and you're alone, you'll understand what you threw away. I threw away nothing. You threw me away years ago. I'm just acknowledging the reality you created. If you don't help your sister, you'll regret it. Family means something. It clearly doesn't mean anything to you. It's just a word you use when you want something. I ended the call and immediately blocked the number. Daniel found me standing in the kitchen, shaking with adrenaline. They called. Olivia saw the house. Now they want back in my life. Or more accurately, they want access to my money. He wrapped his arms around me. What do you want to do? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. They made their choice 7 years ago. I'm not rewarding them for suddenly deciding I have value. The calls kept coming from different numbers. I blocked them all. Olivia tried emailing my work address, a lengthy message about sisterly bonds and forgiveness that made me want to throw my laptop. I had my assistant mark any emails from that address as spam. The email had been pathetic in its transparency. Olivia wrote about childhood memories I barely recognized, painting a picture of sisterhood that had never existed. She mentioned inside jokes we'd never shared, bonding moments that were pure fiction. It was revisionist history, designed to manipulate, to create a foundation for her requests that had no basis in reality. She included photos from our childhood, carefully selected images that showed us together at holidays, at family vacations, smiling for the camera. What the photos didn't show was the context, how she'd excluded me from conversations with her friends during those holidays, how she'd complained about sharing a hotel room with me on those vacations, how those smiles disappeared the moment our parents stopped watching. My assistant, a sharp woman named Chloe, who'd been with me for 2 years, brought me coffee after dealing with the third email from Olivia in 1 week. I flagged another one from your sister, she said carefully. I can set up a permanent filter if you want. You'll never have to see them. Do it. And Chloe, if anyone claiming to be family shows up here, I'm not available. I don't care what emergency they claim. She nodded without judgment. Consider it handled. My mother showed up at my office 2 weeks later. Security called before allowing her up, and I had them tell her I wasn't available. She waited in the lobby for 3 hours before finally leaving. The persistence was almost impressive, if it wasn't so transparently opportunistic. Daniel suggested we get a security system for the house, cameras at the gates and driveway. I agreed, not out of fear, but out of a desire for privacy. Our home was our sanctuary. I wouldn't let them violate it. Sarah, who'd known my history, invited me to lunch one afternoon. Over salads at a trendy bistro, she fixed me with a knowing look. Your family found out about your success. How did you know? Because it always happens. The people who doubted you, who wrote you off, they resurface when you prove them wrong. It's like clockwork. What did you do when it happened to you? She smiled, a bit sad, but mostly at peace. I sent my mother a very brief letter. I told her I'd built my life without her input or support and I intended to continue that way. I told her I wished her well, but we had nothing more to discuss. Then I moved across the country and never looked back. Do you regret it? Not once. Some people are toxic, even when they're related to you. Maybe especially when they're related to you. You don't owe them forgiveness or access just because you share blood. The validation helped. I wasn't crazy or cruel. I was protecting what I built. Olivia showed up at the house on a Saturday morning 6 months after the initial call. The security camera caught her pulling up in a modest sedan, sitting in the driveway for 10 minutes before finally approaching the door. I watched on my phone as she rang the bell. Daniel was out playing golf. I was alone, working in my office on client portfolios. I didn't answer the door. She rang again, knocked, called out my name. I watched her on the camera, seeing the way she took in the property, the expensive landscaping, the 3-car garage with Daniel's Tesla visible through the window. Finally, she left something on the doorstep and returned to her car. After she drove away, I retrieved the envelope. Inside was a letter handwritten on nice stationery. Maya, I know you're angry. I understand why you cut us off, but I'm asking you, sister to sister, to please consider helping me and Ethan. We're drowning in debt. The wedding cost exceeded what Mom and Dad gave us, and we thought Ethan's career would cover everything. It hasn't. We have a baby on the way, Sophie, and I'm terrified. You clearly have more than enough. Would it really hurt you to share some of your success with your only sister? I'm sorry for how things were when we were growing up. I see now that it was unfair. I'm asking for forgiveness and help. Please, Olivia. I read it twice, waiting for sympathy to surface. It didn't come. The wedding cost exceeded $80,000, and they expected what? More handouts? They'd been given an enormous head start and managed it poorly. The baby announcement was clearly calculated to pull emotional strings. I put the letter through the shredder in my office. Daniel came home that afternoon with Chinese takeout and found me on the back deck staring at the woods. She came by, I said. Left a letter begging for money. Mentioned a baby on the way like that would change my mind. Are you okay? He asked. I'm relieved. I admit it. I thought maybe there'd be some part of me that felt guilty or wanted to help. But there's nothing. They're strangers whose financial problems aren't my responsibility. That's healthy, he said. Is it? Or am I cold? He sat beside me, taking my hand. You're not cold. You're boundaried. There's a difference. They had every chance to build a relationship with you that wasn't transactional. They chose not to. You don't owe them anything just because they realized they miscalculated your potential. The truth of it settled over me like a warm blanket. I never responded to Olivia's letter. The calls and emails eventually stopped, tapering off over the following months. I changed my work email to make it harder to contact me directly. I made sure my home address wasn't publicly available through any online directories. Life continued in its peaceful rhythm. My firm expanded, taking on 2 more advisors and opening a second office across the state. Daniel's next startup showed promising early traction. We talked about starting a family of our own, on our own terms, without the dysfunction that had marked my childhood. I ran into an old family friend at a charity gala almost 2 years after Olivia's visit. Susan was a woman who had been close with my mother years ago. She approached cautiously, clearly uncertain of her reception. Maya, you look wonderful. I heard about your success. Congratulations. Thank you, Susan. Your mother talks about you sometimes. She misses you. I'm sure she does. Susan hesitated, then pushed forward. She admits they handled things poorly. Your father especially. He's not well, you know. Heart problems. I think he regrets how things went. The emotional manipulation was obvious, even coming from someone who probably meant well. I'm sorry to hear he's unwell, but that doesn't change anything between us. Family is important, Maya. Life is short. Some family is toxic, Susan. Life is too short to waste on people who only value you when you have something they want. She looked uncomfortable, but nodded. I understand. I hope you're happy. I am genuinely happy, and that's because I'm not carrying their dysfunction anymore. We parted ways cordially, but I could see the story making its way back to my mother. Maya is cold. Maya is heartless. Maya won't forgive even when her father is sick. Let them think what they wanted. Their narrative didn't define me anymore. Sterling Investment Partners was featured in a regional business magazine the following spring. The article highlighted firms founded by women, focusing on my journey from junior analyst to founder. They mentioned my educational background, my approach to client services, my firm's growth trajectory. They didn't mention my family. I declined to discuss my personal life beyond basic facts about my marriage and general background. The article generated new client inquiries and speaking invitations. I was asked to speak at a Women in Finance conference, sharing my story of building something from nothing. Standing on that stage, looking at an audience of ambitious women facing their own obstacles, I felt the full weight of how far I'd traveled. The people who doubt you aren't always strangers, I told the audience. Sometimes they're the ones closest to you. Sometimes they're the ones who should be cheering loudest. But their doubt says everything about them and nothing about your potential. Your job isn't to prove them wrong. Your job is to build something so authentic to who you are that their opinion becomes irrelevant. The applause was thunderous. Daniel was in the audience, beaming with pride. Afterward at the reception, he pulled me aside. That was incredible. You're incredible. I almost didn't accept this speaking invitation. Talking about the family stuff felt too revealing. But it's your truth, and clearly it resonated. He was right. 3 women approached me afterward, sharing their own stories of family rejection and estrangement. One was in tears, thanking me for validating her choice to distance herself from parents who undermined her constantly. You made me feel less alone, she said. That night, lying in our beautiful bedroom in our beautiful house, I realized something profound. My parents had tried to make me small, to convince me I was unworthy. Instead, they'd given me the greatest gift, the motivation to prove to myself what I was capable of. Olivia's baby was born, according to the birth announcement I saw through a mutual acquaintance's social media. A girl named Sophie. The photo showed a modest nursery, tired smiles, the universal exhaustion of new parents. I felt nothing. No warmth, no curiosity, no desire to reach out. Sophie was a stranger born to strangers, living a life that didn't intersect with mine. Do you think you'll ever regret this? Daniel asked when I mentioned seeing the announcement. Not having a relationship with your niece? I don't think so. A relationship would mean having Olivia in my life, and my parents by extension. It would mean reopening doors I closed for very good reasons. Sophie will grow up with her parents and grandparents. She won't miss an aunt she never knew. Fair enough. Just checking in. His lack of judgment was one of the things I loved most about him. He supported my choices without trying to nudge me toward reconciliation or conventional family dynamics. The 5-year anniversary of Sterling Investment Partners was celebrated with a small party at a wine bar downtown. My team, now grown to 10 financial advisors and administrative support staff, gathered to toast our success. Sarah gave a speech about believing in my vision from the beginning. Maya built this firm on integrity, expertise, and genuine care for clients, she said, raising her glass. But more than that, she built it on the understanding that success is sweetest when it's entirely your own. To 5 more years. Driving home that night, past the expensive homes in our neighborhood, pulling into our circular driveway, and seeing the lights warm in the windows, I felt complete. My parents never got to see this house beyond Olivia's glimpse from the street. They never got to know about my firm's success beyond whatever rumors reached them. They never got to be part of my happiness with Daniel or any of the life we built. That wasn't cruelty. That was consequence. They taught me I didn't deserve help. I learned they were wrong, but I also learned I didn't need them. The lessons stuck. Sometimes at night, I wondered if they truly understood what they'd lost. Not access to my money or reflected glory for my success. They'd lost the chance to know me as an adult, as a woman who built something remarkable. They'd lost the opportunity for a genuine relationship based on mutual respect rather than conditional approval. But mostly, I didn't think about them at all. My life was full of people who'd chosen to be there, who celebrated my victories and supported my struggles. Sarah, who'd mentored me without expecting anything in return. Daniel, who loved me without trying to change me. My team, who trusted my leadership. My clients, who referred friends and family because they valued my work. I didn't need my parents' approval anymore. I didn't need Olivia's understanding or my father's regret. I had built something beautiful, something lasting, something entirely mine. And in the end, that was worth more than any relationship based on obligation or biology. The house stood as a symbol not of revenge, but of resilience. Not of spite, but of self-determination. Every window, every carefully chosen piece of furniture, every mortgage payment represented a choice to bet on myself when no one else would. My parents gave Olivia $80,000 and told me I didn't deserve help. They were right about one thing. I didn't need their help. I needed their absence. And in that absence, I built a life beyond their imagination, beyond their small vision of who I should be and what I deserved. I built freedom. And that ultimately was priceless. What do you think? Did I make the right choice?